tell the people who you are and what you do.
So my name is Maggie Schneider, and I am the frontwoman of a band called Glimmers. I sing in the band, play keys in the band, a little bit of guitar sometimes. But yeah, music is my life, so I'm just happy to be here and just happy to continue making music.
That's like, I'm so excited to have you on because so what I want to jump into right now is uh who do people like not confuse you, but who do people say that you sound like? Do you have a lot of people that say that you sound like somebody in particular?
It's always Haley Williams.
Okay. So I was going to say, like, I'm not sure if you actually remind me of her, but you remind me of the first time I heard her, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense.
that makes sense.
So, like, I mean, we're talking, and this is kind of amazing because I'm now thinking back to when I first heard her, like that first Paramore album, which is like what, like 13 years ago, something
Yeah,
like
it's been a
that.
while.
But it was like that first booming female voice you heard in like a pop punk band,
Yeah.
and but like had that really that aggressive, like strong tone with the vibrato mixed in. And I just had like that oh shit moment. Like that hasn't been a moment that I've experienced until recently whenever I stumbled across you.
Yay, that makes me feel good. Thank you.
So and then that becomes a whole thing because you and I have this weird connection of how we know each other. Well, I guess now we kind of know each other, but we know each other in a very unlikely way, which is through ties through the band All Time Low.
Yes.
And so I kind of want to hear like what your background is, because I know you did some recording with Ryan, and I just kind of want to know like what the full background is with you and the guys.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been making music for a really long time, but for the majority of that time, I was a solo artist. So I think it's been now 4 years since I worked with Ryan for the first time. So Ryan had a studio in Nashville that he produced and recorded bands in. And so I met up with a band called the Everyday Anthem, and I'm still really good friends with Nick, the vocalist, to this day, and he helps co-write songs with me and all of that good stuff. But they were working with Ryan at the time, and so he invited me up to the studio to co-write and record my parts for a song that I worked on with him for their record. And so I was 17. I was so thrilled. Like, this was probably the biggest point for me. And All Time Low is my favorite band still.
I mean, they're so good. They're
They
so good.
are. And Wake Up Sunshine, that record truly got me through the beginning of the pandemic, especially. Just a breath of fresh air. And Alex Gaspard, if he's listening, please write a song with me. Um, but putting that aside, I met Ryan at that point, and then after the weekend was over, he invited me back. He said, we should work on some of your solo stuff. And I wasn't expecting that at all. I was just happy to be there working on a song that I co-wrote for my friend's band, and I really didn't think it would go any further than that. But we set it up, and I went to work with him two more times. One for a solo EP that I put out, I think in 2017, 2018, I think it was at this point, called Tinted Glasses. And then the next year for a little duo side project thing that I had. So that was how I connected with him musically. And since then, he's been so supportive. He's truly been a mentor of mine and really gave me great advice in terms of being in the music industry. And he always said, you know what? It's about the building blocks. This isn't a race. It's just about continuing to grow and continuing to set goals for yourself. So, you're always striving to move forward, and that's important, but don't stress about it. Like, you will go where you want to be. And so that has stuck with me, and they're just the best.
Well, I mean, so that's such good advice from him because he probably doesn't remember me from then. Like he knows who I am now, but he doesn't know me from like when we first crossed paths. Like my, so I told you that I know them through my best friend, Matt, who used to be their tour manager.
Yeah.
And before then, Matt was in a band called Transition, and they were really big here. Actually, kind of funny, Matt's front man, Dan, is now Dan from Dan and Shay.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of how this, like, it's so weird how things snowball the way they do. But so somehow Transition an All Time Low. I think it was like either a MySpace or one of those Pure Volume connections. And they would, whenever Transition would throw like these big headline shows at this church, they would rent out this church.
Yeah.
They would have All Time Low come in sometimes and like be one of like the main feature openers and stuff like that. So that's how far back it goes. It goes back to like 2005, something like that, 6, back that far. And then kind of fast forward, Transition kind of falls apart. All Time Low gets bigger and they need help. Matt kind of jumps on board. They get real tight. And like, so my big, like I met them just kind of like, when they're in town, I get to go hang out, blah, blah, blah. But then, so Matt gets married and I'm the best man. I get to book the bachelor party. So I get to invite all of these guys to the bachelor party. So we do this big weekend in Miami and we go on like a fishing charter and yada, yada. And like they're not nearly as big then as they are now, but like they were on their way. People were recognizing them everywhere. Very wild to be in like the group of people as like you're just kind of walking around town and like seeing the heads turn, like realizing like this is what that life is like where you just get recognized at walking everywhere. But so then that's how I really got to know them, was like spending that weekend together, and it got absolutely insane. And we went on this fishing charter, and half of us were insanely hungover. The other half of us were enjoying ourselves immensely. Alex caught like this massive, we don't even know what it is, some giant fish that like then they cleaned it for us and sent. It's a whole racket they had going on. They would clean it for you. You kind of pay them to clean it. They'd give you the fish, and then you take it to this restaurant and then pay them to make it for you.
Wow.
So like I kept calling Alex the provider after that because he was the only one that was catching anything that was edible.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so that was like when I got to like really experience the guys and get to know them. And then fast forward all the way till just about a month ago or so, when they featured you on either, I forget if there was their story or a post.
Yeah, it was Instagram and Twitter, which was crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely Instagram that I found you on. And that's like, I literally had that moment where like it felt like the needle came off the record. I was like, holy shit, like this girl is great. Like that's, I messaged you right away.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. And literally that was such a crazy thing to have happened. I posted the cover on TikTok first. So I posted on TikTok first, and I make a lot of covers just because I love to make them. And like I said, Wake Up Sunshine is probably now my new favorite record of theirs in its entirety. But I covered it and I tagged the All Time Low TikTok. And then they asked me, the All Time Low account, whoever was on it, if I could message it to them. So I emailed it to them, not knowing why, not knowing what it was for. Like no one told me, but I was like, okay. I'm just and so then a day later, it was on their social media profiles. And it just was so crazy and so cool. And especially reading the comments, and like Ryan commented, it was like, "That's my girl," and I was like, "I miss you so much." Yeah, it was so cool.
Yeah, well, I have to be grateful to them because now I know who you are and now I know who your band is.